O.J. Simpson. Guess who just died? And we all know what I'm talking about. O.J. Simpson. Dude had cancer. Nobody knew. One thing you say about O.J., he can keep some secrets, if nothing else. It's funny, like, what a complicated and interesting life O.J. Simpson lived. To grow up in the Bay Area, go to USC, win the Heisman Trophy, get drafted by the Buffalo Bills, becomes a Hall of Fame running back, at one point held the most yards in a single season. And for a long time, it was basically Jim Brown and O.J. Simpson was who people consider the two greatest running backs of all time for a long time. And then to break into acting, and people forget those Naked Gun movies, man. They were so freaking funny. And then your whole legacy is just when, obviously, the O.J. murder trial happened. Whether he did it or not, I don't know if anybody ever know. What I do know, the killer's never been found, and not even close. There's never been another suspect. So, if it wasn't O.J. Simpson, it was the perfect crime by whoever killed Nicole and Ron Goldman. I mean, that was the perfect murder. Nobody's ever been caught. Nobody's ever been accused. It's been O.J., and that's it. So, and I think it's one of those things. There's certain places in history you knew where you were when it happened. 9/11. I'm just speaking from American standpoint. 9/11. I was waking up, and I was getting ready to get on a flight the next morning to Tampa. And I woke up, and I was like, people start calling. I was asleep. I was on the West Coast when it happened, so it was really early in the morning. And everybody like turned on TV, and then a couple people was like, you good? Because the people that were close to me knew I flew a lot. And, yeah, so I was in California in bed when 9/11 happened. I was in Nashville, Tennessee when Michael Jackson died. I'll never forget that. But O.J. was interesting because that was pre-internet. And, I'll never forget, June 17th. What a day. The Knicks were playing the Rockets, and that was game 5. Was it game? I believe it was game 5 of the NBA Finals. June. So June 17th, 1994. Let's see, what was it? I'm almost 90% positive it was game 5. Game 5. Knicks, Rockets. And I know New York fans will never forget this. June 17th. Yeah, it was game 5. So I remember I had ACL reconstructive surgery that day. I was in the Navy, and I went in, and I had my surgery on like 5-day notice. I went in, they said, yeah, your ACL's tore, and we got to go in and fix it. So what I remember that day, I was coming out of anesthesia, and I was just like, I was slowly coming to, and I remember the doc or somebody saying, do you want some more, whatever medication they were giving me? And I was like, what time is it? And whatever time it was, 2 o'clock, I go, how long will I be out? And they said, you'll be out like 4 more hours. I said, no. Knicks are playing the Rockets. I want to see the game. And I just remember like the doctor busted out laughing. They go, well, the man wants to see the game. And back then, there's no internet. So if you missed the game, you got to wait till the next day. I remember USA Today used to come out. And I remember running when I was in the military because I didn't have cable, running to get to the USA Today in the morning because there always was a sports section in the top right or left-hand corner, and that would be the news for the night. And a lot of times the later games, the West Coast games, they wouldn't even report on because the paper had to get out. But I was such a Knicks fan because I was such a Patrick Ewing fan back then. And so all I wanted to do was see the game. And they wheel me in. I'm in recovery. They wheel me into the my room, and I'm watching the game, and everything's going smooth, and then the Bronco chase happens, and I went, oh, and I thought they were going to cut in for a minute. All of a sudden, it just kept going, and I said, this game's over. And keep in mind, I'm also in and out because I just had surgery, so I'm kind of waking up, going back to bed, wake up, going back to bed. And then I finally get up and nothing. And the hospital had like 3 channels. It was a Navy hospital. We didn't have ESPN. So I'm trying to figure out the news. I'm falling asleep, and I had to wait till the next morning. I didn't know till the next morning, till I got that USA Today, that the Knicks won, and they won Game 5. And I thought, it's in the bag. They're up 3-2, and they end up losing in 7 games. So that was my biggest memory of the OJ thing, was that dang Bronco chase that cut out the Knicks and Rockets game. And here's what's crazy. Years later, probably 2001 maybe, 2002, I was in, it's always been a long week. I was in Miami at the Improv in Coconut Grove. OJ comes to the show, and I remember they was telling me, they said, OJ's coming to the show tonight. I said, really? Because I think he was living in Miami back then. And I remember he showed up with another guy and 2 white girls. And then the host said, hey, you mind if we announce you're here? And OJ goes, yeah, but let me give you a signal. So him and the host came up with something. He was going to talk about a certain subject or something. And I didn't understand why. I was like, what's it matter if he's going to announce you or not? So I remember the host, right before he announces my name, he was like, yo, we got a big celebrity in the building, da-da-da-da. O.J. Simpson. And that's when I realized people, like, the internet's one thing, but people in real life, there was no booze. Nobody was like, oh, what the hell's he doing here? Everybody was just like clapping. Some people went nuts. But here's the killer. OJ came to the club with another brother and 2 white girls. When that host announced his name, he was sitting between 2 black girls. He moved his seat to sit between 2 sisters, and literally, I'll never forget it. I remember he had his arm around them, and they announced his name, and he like waved to the crowd, and they went nuts. And then when I got on stage, I remember seeing him move his seats to go back to the white girls and the brother. I was like, oh, my God. I said, oh, okay, I see what he did there. Because you got to realize my crowd was mostly black. And so he was like, he probably assessed it when he saw it. And he was like, oh, black crowd. Yeah, let me not sit between 2 white girls. Let me sit between 2 black girls. I was like, kind of smooth, I got to admit. So then I don't know how I ever really felt about him. I don't want to say I was indifferent, but I don't know. I was kind of like intrigued by the whole trial. But I remember I was at the bar after the show, and I was sitting there, and OJ sits right next to me, starts having a conversation with me. And that's when I realized, oh, I get it. I always tell people, you don't know till you're in the rooms with these people why they are who they are. A la Dave Chappelle. I'm sure it's like that with Donald Trump, Kevin Hart. I'm trying to think who was like people just being all in the room with them that I've been in the room with them and can say, oh yeah. Steve Harvey, Cat Williams. You're kind of in the room with these people, and then you get where they're at in their life. It's just something about them. Their personalities are infectious, and you kind of almost fall back and just wait on them to talk. And then I've seen it. I've been in the rooms with them. I've seen how people react. I've seen how people gravitate to him. OJ's had it. Whatever that it is, I had it. He had it. And I got to feel it firsthand because he started talking to me, and he was like, where you from, man? And I was like, Cincinnati. He goes, oh, man. He rattled off like 2 games Buffalo played against Cincinnati and how Buffalo was cold, but it wasn't cold like Cincinnati. One of the coldest games they ever played in was against the Bengals. And I was just like, he's talking to me about stand-up. He's talking about people we knew. It was just like, I forgot I'm talking to a potential murderer. Like, I'm just like, I got so engaged for about 5 minutes, I forgot who I was talking to. Because one thing about me, you bring up the Cincinnati Bengals, you're going to have a conversation on your hand. And so when he brought up the Bengals and new players, all of a sudden it was just me talking to a dude about football. Take the murder out of it. I'm talking to an NFL Hall of Famer, Heisman Trophy winner, NFL legend, and I'm just going, and people forget his broadcasting career was skyrocketing too when all this happened. I was just like, I completely forgot. He was that engaging. And I was like, and I remember when he walked away, my opener was like, you believe that just happened? I go, that was crazy. And I sat there, I remember just sitting there having a drink going, oh my God, I literally just had like a 20-minute conversation with O.J. Simpson. And just us two, like no problem. And he initiated. And one thing I did notice, his head was huge. He had a big-ass head. I was like, yeah, that's not a normal head.